Oh,
I can't start without her. Thank you, Carissa. I would like to call the special meeting of the Ulysses Town Board to order. It is August 2nd, 2022 at 8:02, maybe 8:03, somewhere in there, AM. And we're here for a budget retreat. Aside from approving the meeting agenda, there's not intention to take any other action today. It's more of a discussion-based retreat format. So is there a motion to approve the agenda? I'm sorry, would you do a roll call? Sorry.
Sure. Ms. Marino. Here. Ms. Bouchard.
Here.
Mr. Goldman.
here.
Ms. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Boggs. Who's muted, but I can see.
Sorry,
him.
present.
He's attending remotely.
Wonderful. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as presented?
So.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Okay, so privilege of the floor. Is there anyone, does not look like there's anyone in attendance. So we'll skip right past that to the budget development schedule.
Okay, so sent this packet out, the fully updated one. Yesterday, I want to just point out that in the lower left-hand corner, if it was in the original one that was sent on Friday, it says page in original packet, just to denote. So I apologize for the double packet, but wanted to get you the information as soon as I had it, in case you wanted to use it to study over the weekend. But so this is the pared down budget development calendar that I think you've already seen a version of this already, but my main point on this one right now is that for today anyway, is that we have not yet scheduled the department head meetings that are to occur the week of September 12th and the 19th. And we've said that those are going to be happening on the Tuesdays and Thursdays of those weeks, I believe. Let me just make sure that I have that correct. Yes, so the Tuesday and Thursday mornings of the week of the 12th and the 19th from 9 a.m. to noon is our intention to hold those department head meetings. And I was wondering if, before I schedule those, I want to make sure that we work around if anybody has an idea of the departments that they would like to attend. I want to make sure that we can work around your schedule for that. And as we spoke about when we talked about this plan a couple meetings ago, if there's more than 3 board members who want to go to a department head meeting, we have to make sure that it gets advertised correctly per public meetings law. So we'll have to know ahead of time what your intention is as far as which departments you want to go to. So does anybody have a sense today about what departments they want to go to, or should I just schedule them and you can plug in as available? So it's up to, I'm sort of putting it out there about how you want to do it.
I think you should just schedule that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'll
If
just
people
plug in.
go, they go, if they don't go, they don't go.
Right, okay. But once again, we will have to know ahead of time if you're planning to come, because of if there's more than 3 board members there, we have to publish it like a public
But
meeting.
I think it'll be unlikely. But I think we can organize ourselves where we don't do it.
Okay, all right, so I'll get those scheduled and get that schedule out to you. Any other questions about this calendar? We've got a couple, there's a couple points where if we don't get to a certain point on a certain meeting, we'll have to schedule special town board meetings. And those are indicated in those lines. For instance, if we're not ready to schedule the public hearing on October 25th, for instance, we might have to schedule a special town board meeting for that. So
Under the schedule, there would be 2 town board meetings where the budget would be discussed.
right, correct.
Unless those other ones become town board meetings. Because 3 board members want to attend.
Right. Yeah, unless there's a special town board meeting, those are the 2. And then the public hearing at this point, if things go as planned and this looks okay, we could have the public hearing on November 8th.
So you could also have a special town board meeting between the 11th and the
Yeah,
25th.
right.
That would make more sense maybe than
Yeah.
the 3rd. where You just presented it on the 5th,
Right, yeah.
especially if there's a lot of other work in the meetings, so there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Right.
So
We did,
I think holding, I'm just thinking about the fact that there might be another meeting between the 11th and the 12th.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
there might be, but we rescheduled the meeting from the 22nd to the 29th of November. So,
Oh, I'm
Because-
talking about, October.
oh, you're talking about October.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No,
sorry.
because it has to be passed by the 20th.
Right. And so that's why I thought, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about November. I'm like, no, but we already moved meetings in November.
It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's okay. There's a lot of organization that must occur in your brain.
Exactly.
Can I run
So-
something by you?
Sure.
When you do the department meetings, this is kind of something I want to throw out there for everybody. Could you do an executive summary of each department so that you're not all done and then you present it to us and then we have to, hash through it again? So if you do a department meeting, give us an executive summary that the budget's gonna, do something big or something not big.
is there any way to turn that on, the volume? I think I heard no, okay. Michael, so this year, when we sent out the department head forms, which is the next page, an example of it, but actually department head forms are much more complicated than that. When we sent those out to department heads, we also asked them to summarize their budgetary requests. So we will have something directly from the department heads. I'm not entirely sure we would have time to pull together something more than that, but we have asked them to provide that when they submit their budget requests.
Now,
We've
I'm
also
just-
had initial meetings with department heads to get a heads up on any large purchases. And we have outlined for 2023 what the intentions are to date in terms of what are going to be significant outlays. We are not seeing significant outlays from any particular department. We're looking at more broader projects like the IT update, the comprehensive plan. Scott doesn't think he's got a big purchase in 2023. None of the other departments have come forward and said, this is a big year for us. This is what we need now. So I would be surprised at this juncture if we're surprised by significant. If you're looking for significant expenditures, we've already had early conversations about that and have already put down what we think these significant expenditures are going to be.
Right, yeah, it was not only significant expenditures, it was some structural changes, because last year, I believe whatever the team was, Biloxi was on it as well. And we had changed how we were looking at the highway, so that was one item, and then the other one was water. That was also changed quite a bit. And so I think it would help us in the public meetings if we could read some of this stuff. If there are big changes, not big, I mean, not saying big like money, but I'll use water as an example. We pulled out a whole bunch we went from a small bucket to tiny buckets, right? And then you're trying to make sense of what you can't compare it year over year because now it's in 5 items instead of 1 item. I think
So, I'm sorry, Michael, I thought you were done.
Yeah. So and that's all I was looking for. And really, it would be an executive summary, just some quick notes that says, hey, this is what we discussed. This is what it's looking like. I'm not asking Michelle or anybody to, lay out, a half a day doing this.
I think we could provide the committee notes. I think that's, essentially the notes from whatever meeting. I think that's something we could do. And then I would also encourage, if you have a particular interest in a particular department, is attend that meeting. I think that's the best way to get the most robust sense of what's happening in that particular department. I think that's true for everybody.
So just circling back to the point that Roxanne made about if between the 2 October meetings, that actually scheduled special town board meeting week of 10/17 is what that would actually be, not week of 10/3.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
talking
I
about
think it just makes more
right there.
sense.
Yeah,
because
totally. And I think,
the conversation will have been going
Yep.
on, and it will be focusing on if there's some
Yeah.
issue that needs further exploration,
Right.
and or if we get a lot of other things at the town board meeting.
right, so on 10/11 is when we would probably schedule that at the 10/11,
Yeah,
at the 10/11 town board meeting.
because you don't need. much minutes, right? to do that, the special meeting?
Also, as an FYI, I am doing a 2-week trip to Italy in October.
That's too bad.
Family trip.
Carissa.
I know.
So my new deputy started yesterday and it went great and I'm looking forward to that. So, you know, she, I think, will be fully capable in the absence.
Any other questions about the budget development calendar? So this is a very pared down version of what our department heads fill out. This is the town board equivalent. So if there's anything specific that you would like to see in the budget, whether it be the town board CE line or, you know, let's just be in conversation. This is the way for you to submit it officially. I don't know, we've put this out for a couple years. I don't know if anyone's taken advantage of it, but this is just a really easy way for me to get requests from you. So if you don't have a cost estimate source for these things, let's just be in touch before you hand it over so that maybe we can get something a little more figured out. And then, you know, between Caitlin and I, we can integrate this kind of request into the budget. I just want to make sure you had a mechanism for besides verbal. You know, in we used to have the department head sign there, so there's like an official submission of requests that happens as far as like the state law structure goes, but so this is our way of sort of providing something like that. So this is provided electronically. I can provide a hard copy. Just let me know what you need via Excel too. So. Okay. So now we're getting into conversations about the past a little bit and this year. Blixie, we got data from Williamson Law Book from 2015 to 2021 that provides all of the expenditures line by line. So if anybody wants this electronically or printed, it is a little tricky. It's, you know, it's a lot of information, but I'm happy to try to format it for you. But I want to make everybody aware that this is available. This is every account line that we have, revenue and expenditures, and this is directly exported from Williamson Law Book. So this is what we're going to be using for any sort of historic analysis that we do. And this is now a resource that we have that we'll be adding to year after year. So this is available upon request.
Yeah, what's nice about this is that it has your original and your modified budget along with the actual results.
That's good.
So you can see historically, you know, how that's gone back to
This is not being
2018.
screen shared.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It's still on
all right.
the screen.
let's and of course it's blurry a little bit, but this does exist. And you know, one of the things that I'm hoping to do in August is take a look at line by line, the difference between what was budgeted and the actual, and try to get a historic understanding of that on a line to line basis. So please let me know if you want this either electronically or hard copy. And if you want a hard copy, you might need a microscope or a magnifying glass. So, but I think I can print it out so it is readable still, but it'll just be, I'll have to take 2 pieces of paper together to get it all fit, but I'm happy to do it. So, so this is good to have. And we're screen sharing correctly. So some notes about 2020. I wanted to mention that we did have,
2020.
2022.
2022. So notes about 2022. Our overall budget increased by 17% in 2022. But we added a bunch of money to reserves, and we had a big year for equipment expenses, which that, you know, as we know, equipment expenses does vary. You know, it's definitely, we're trying to even it out, but last year was a big year based on a variety of things. So that represented 6% of that increase. Reserve additions represented 6%. And then ARPA expenditures represented about 2.5 of that. So I just wanted to point that
What
out.
does that mean?
So it's basically of the total budget. So the
Yeah, no, I
budget,
mean, what were the like, we got ARPA money in, so that wasn't expenditures that we got tax dollars extra for.
correct.
So that
Um,
doesn't, it just seems like maybe it doesn't. quite-
so in the
Same
overall
way.
budget,
Yeah,
the overall expenses that we originally budgeted for ARPA,
The offset, yeah.
for
So-
ARPA offset was 2.5. So we said, we're gonna, out of the entire budget, 2.5 of that is going to be ARPA
Offset.
offset.
offset by the ARPA funds we got.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
Yeah.
But so that's kind
Yeah,
of
that's
different than
kind-
the
yeah,
other two
yeah,
things,
right.
because the other two things are raised by all our other revenue sources, and that is raised separately by this one-time amount of money.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And it's offset by income, so it's not really a net
that's what
expenditure.
I'm saying, yeah.
Right, but there have been questions that have been asked about the overall increase of our budget, looking at the budget overall, and you can't look at the budget overall without recognizing that some of that increase is correlated to money that was offset by ARPA, because this is only referring to actual expenditures. Is this things we actually spent,
This is budgeted.
budgeted? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's gonna show up as income on another.
Right, yeah,
income
so
statement.
it's, yeah. So,
But your budget overall grew 17%.
Right.
right.
Part of it was because of the ARPA funds we got.
And we're just
Correct.
explaining what
Yeah.
that 17% comes from, so.
Right, but expend, yeah.
Yeah, this is
Maybe there
looking-
could be- If you're explaining it to someone else or writing it out, that was offset
Right, by
by
revenue.
one-time money that
Right.
came in, it's not anything that's based on our
Right.
usual revenue sources.
Right.
for
Right.
people, That's all.
Right,
If you're wondering about that, then I think that helps. people.
Yeah.
Or us, or whoever's.
So still in 2022, there's some areas of underspending that are related to vacant positions that
so
have been
before
vacant.
that, non-property tax revenue.
Oh, sure. That was, we increased our sales tax revenue by 29% from the year
Right.
before.
Can I just go back to the ARPA funds?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So of the total that we get that has to be spent over some period of time, which is 6 years, or 5 years or something?
We have until the end of 2024 to commit the funds.
Okay,
And then
so-
it has to be out the door by 2026.
Right. But we got like already, like the income that we got that we charged is like half of that total amount.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit complicated. It'd be wonder to stand too, because it's a big pulse income, but we could spend it over time. Okay, thanks. Yep. That's a good thing to have in the notes or whatever, you know, the public summary notes or whatever that we do for the budget.
Okay, yeah. So as we all know, we have been understaffed. And so there's going to be underspending in a variety of lines and the benefits associated with those lines, so. So that, when we were talking about this, there was a request to do a brief review for where we're at for 2022, so that's what we're doing here. So the other lines of underspending are listed there. You know, there's some, the records management, maybe Krista, you can help me out on this one a little bit. You know, this is all through the lens of where we thought, what we thought our work plan was for 2022 and 2021. We were looking at doing some new laws for water, which haven't come to fruition as far as I understand. And I don't know, now that we have, you know, we have this money set aside for these different areas. So if they happen before the end of the year, then that's how, because the records management, whenever there's a change of the law, there's money output for updating the code online, correct?
General code to incorporate the law into our current law.
We haven't bought conference room furniture yet downstairs because we were wondering about, using that money instead for the ADA door, getting the back door ADA compliant. So, that money hasn't been spent yet.
I didn't know we approved $6,000 in conference room furniture.
We did, it was in the budget. It's also, I think, gonna be better to wait to 2023 for purchasing of that, because we're now seeing surplus, that there's a surplus inventory of goods that are not being purchased in America, so prices should go down.
Mhm,
So this would have been a harder year, more expensive year to buy.
yeah.
Why do we need new furniture?
Yeah, I was just,
If you,
It looks kind of new to me.
well, the chairs are very cumbersome to.
that's part of
try
the
to-
problem.
heavy.
It's
Yeah.
not fit for the space at all.
Right, I mean, they're so huge for the space. If you're actually trying to have effective meetings there, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Even with 5 people. 'cause of the
And-
chairs.
I mean, and if you host
For
somebody.
like a million years, like,
Right.
it's not a big.
It's not a big deal. If you host anybody from the outside, it's always a little awkward, like, sorry about the setup.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's aesthetic.
Maybe you have a
And-
better cabinet or a better shelving in the closet, so stuff doesn't have to be piled all around, so you can move. I think it's a great idea to
Okay.
move that room, it's terrible.
Well, the other thing
It has been
is too,
since I was.
the other thing is too, is the highway, like the highway table setup, all their equipment is like from the 1970s and 80s. And that equipment would actually move there because it's more suited, it's more, they have more space. And so it's not that they're gonna either need new equipment or, and this seems like a good reuse of moving our stuff, town hall stuff into the highway department that can use it more effectively and then
Okay.
dealing with that room.
So other areas of underspending is that we did have 40,000 in the B fund offset by ARPA funds for water studies this year. And we also had $10,000 in community or ag survey earmarked in the budget, so. And then in both those, the next bullet here, this one, the B. We still have that software in there that's offset by, there's 16,500 in both of those two lines. And then, you know, once we got the ball rolling on this IT audit, we realized that we do want to wait on that software in case there is an enterprise level software solution that we can have a single software for the entire town. I don't know if that's going to be an option based on how much that sort of thing costs, but
We also
Um,
didn't have a planner to help participate in that process.
well, yeah,
So
I mean,
it-
that's a huge, and that's the actual number one reason. Number two is the other thing, so.
What line?
Sorry, I should have, not
No, that's
bulleted
okay.
these, but
No, it's fine, just
The
B
B fund,
fund,
B 3620.4.
second item under B fund.
I've highlighted it on the screen.
the water district?
No,
No.
the enforcement officer.
Oh,
B fund.
enforcement.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, actually in 2021, we budgeted and purchased, put an order in for the F-550. And based on everything that's going on, it might arrive in 2022. For this budgeted year, it was offset by appropriated fund balance. If we don't buy it this year, we'll probably do the same thing instead of doing an encumbrance. So we can not give Blixie a headache with an encumbrance. So this is what I thought it would be a good idea to just review what was budgeted for ARPA use in 2022. And then talk about what we have actually, what we are actually going to be, what we've gotten to. And there's some elements in here that we'll be talking about later on as well, as far as work activities and work planning goes. So what we've actually been able to do this year is what we've already talked about at the board level, which is the Android bag replacement that is going to be happening at some point this year. And we discussed that as, the board discussed that as offsetting that with ARPA funds as budgeted, so. So we'll get into the rest of Water District 3 work plans in a little bit.
But nothing else has been spent.
Correct, yep. We haven't actually spent that yet because it hasn't been yet, so, but it's the one thing that we have
That was. approved.
earmarked, right.
Right. Because all of this was like the product.
Right,
We
that,
put it in the budget.
right, okay, right. I'm gonna just increase this a little bit. So some revenue updates for 2022. Everything else is pretty well on track. And also Blixie, in Blixie's June report, she did provide a pretty thorough review of all expense and revenue lines and where we're at with those. So you said that as
That
part
was
of the,
the board
It was
materials
for last-
for July.
Yeah.
Yep.
We didn't
Mortgage
get
tax.
June yet?
what do you say?
Mortgage tax.
Yeah, yeah.
Besides.
No, we don't have June yet for.
No, we don't have June, yep. And we have, just about $27,000 left to earn to meet budget for mortgage tax, which that comes in November. So, and then this is what we have so far. So, we'll be over budget more likely than not on sales tax. And at the last finance committee meeting, we were talking about how relevant the past is or not to that. So, you know, we compare it here with a 6-year average and we compare it to 2021. So at the next finance committee meeting, I'm hoping that we can talk about a method for estimating the end of the year, because we can do it how we did last year, if you'd like. So that'll be coming up, so. All right, so moving on, oh yeah, so this, let's see. Not sure, Roxanne had requested this at the last meeting. So here is our sales tax, and notice obviously the scale is different. The mortgage tax is at maxes out at 160, the sales tax maxes out, so I don't, it looks confusing like that because it's right next to each other, but
I think we're about to see a mortgage tax revenue drop based on interest rates.
yeah,
So it might be pretty flat for this year, but I think it's coming down.
right, yeah, between 20 and 21 it was pretty flat, so. Right. All right, so now we're getting into 2023. So the main idea for today is to just try to get a sense of getting on the same page as far as planning goes, and to try to get any thoughts and requests incorporated now, you know, just so we are working from the same context as we're developing the budget, because you know, the next time that we sit down and really talk about the budget as a town board is going to be when we're looking at the preliminary budget. So, I'm sure everybody's been running into information about the pending predicted recession and inflation and the interest rates and all of that. So I think that is really important context for us to be on the same page about when we're planning for this year.
Nobody knows anything
Right,
about this, so
Right.
nobody's gonna be on the same page.
right. I mean, it's, I think
It's all guesswork.
the bottom line is that we're in tricky times, trickier.
Well,
than
the
usual.
indicators are not consistent, you know, I mean, unemployment is very low, that's.
Yeah, that's
difficult
totally
for
a recession.
Right.
This, and if there is a recession, it's not gonna be any kind of recession we've known. It's gonna be very inventory dependent and supply chain dependent. But you can't have a real recession with 3.6 unemployment. Unemployment would have to get to 5% in order to have any real problems with, I think.
They're seeing in construction though, small businesses, they're looking at, I think the numbers right now suggested that a third don't have the capital to participate as a business in the next 6 months. So
I don't know.
we might see construction there. I think interest rates are obviously going up. I can tell you it's easier to hire now than it was 6 months ago.
To hire who?
People,
Yeah.
Anybody.
yeah, anybody.
You can
It's
do
not
that.
easy to hire, but it's easier.
Well, it's interesting, what I've noticed when I post positions just on the county website for all 3 towns, at least a couple of them, where I posted a couple laborer positions and I was shocked to see a $16.53 an hour position had like 6 applicants and
Oh.
for a seasonal laborer. I was lost.
Yeah,
I didn't think we'd get anybody.
right.
We're hiring 2 court clerks in the field right now. We had 5 applicants. for low wages. Now, again, a lot of these people, I think probably also have other jobs and they're looking for supplemental income.
Mhm.
So that's the people I'm seeing. I'm just sharing that because that's a shift from where you post a position and you get nothing.
Well, that's good. So the interest rates have are already coming down. The 10-year treasury was at 3.40, it's right now at 2.69. So the anticipation of higher interest rates have already happened. The Fed is just catching up to that. So rates are not really gonna go up, and mortgage rates are coming down. They're over 5 and now they're 4.5, so it isn't what it seems to be.
Right, it seems like it's a two-part thing, kind of like the inflation and the problems are people of a certain income level with not very much savings and everything, and then food and everything's really nailing them. And then
Yes.
people who accumulated money over COVID and just want to buy stuff and they can't, and they're upset about it, so it's causing another kind of inflation, because the prices can go up because there's not very much stock, so it's like two things, people who are struggling to live, and then people who like can't buy everything that they want like that. So I think it is unprecedented and really hard to decide where it's gonna go. And
But
supply
obviously,
chain issues
yeah.
and food is gonna be a big problem because of the war.
Winter heating
Right.
also.
Yeah,
Well,
and the weather,
The drought.
the climate.
Yeah, yeah.
In the areas where they produce
Exactly.
large amounts of food in this
That's
country.
gonna be a really big issue for people.
We're
I think.
hoping no prices will go up.
So I think we just have to be
So we
conservative.
just, yeah, I agree.
And I mean, really, nobody, if you could listen to 10 economists and they're all all over the place.
It's fascinating.
But it looks like our tax bill assessed value went up quite a bit.
It did, yeah, it did.
Could that be true
Wow.
throughout the county, I imagine, right?
Yeah,
Because of
well,
the
Did they redo?
revaluation.
Did they do a
yes,
revaluation?
And they did
Yeah.
countywide.
Mhm.
I mean, there's other reasons for that too, depending on the town, but that also happened.
Oh, so it was mostly a kind of.
So the implication of this assessed value is that we're gonna have $39 million more of assessed value. Is that what this says?
That's in the SF and the SM fund. In the A and the DA fund, it's 51.
So we have 90,000.
No, it's different for the
different
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tax, well, we don't have a tax rate. Well, the tax rates are different, the payment rate,
So-
depending on the TAD.
If we want, so basically, the tax cap is lower than what we would be able to, if we wanted to say, oh, we just want the tax rate the same, well, we'd have to exceed the tax cap. So that's just a point that I wanted to make here, was that our tax cap is lower than what we would be able to do if we wanted to keep the same tax rate, because of our TAV went up so much.
Right, so we have to lower the tax rate, is what you're saying.
Yes, we're
Okay.
gonna, unless we want to exceed the tax cap, which I'm
Right, which
guessing
would be
there's no.
crazy,
Right,
yeah, because we
right.
don't need to do that, we already have saved money that we can, from income we earned this year.
Yep.
So we will have a lower tax rate
Correct.
because of that, the
Correct.
tax cap, that's
That's
useful
nice.
information.
Yeah. So, down at the bottom, oops. Just some hypotheticals, and it's nice to have a target so we get all these budget requests in. It's nice for me to be keeping an eye on a target as far as what we might wanna do as far as the tax rate or tax cap, or our, what's our tax levy? So we, like I said, we way overshoot the tax cap if we keep the same tax rate. If we kept the same tax levy with our new TAV, that would be what our tax rates are. So compared to what's up top. So in the ADA, it's this, the 1.161 versus what it was this year, the 1.26, and then 1.2 versus this. So if we had the same tax levy, that's gonna be the tax rate, is my point here.
That's useful.
Alrighty. So, Caitlin asked me to just get some ballparks on salary increases. 2% is about 20,000. That includes salary and benefits. All the benefits associated with income, which
This
is
is
retirement and
across all funds. Yep.
retirement, FICA. So yeah, that's just the ballparks there. And Caitlin, do you want to talk about what the supervisors had been discussing?
Yeah, so I talked to other town supervisors to get a sense of where people were looking, because COLA is expected, some of the early projections, COLA won't come out until October. And initial projections are somewhere in the range of 7%, and obviously we can't absorb a 7% increase. For some context, the union is scheduled for a 4% increase this year. And I reached out to the other supervisors on our monthly call to see where people were, where supervisors were looking. And there are a couple different approaches people are taking. Some of the smaller townships are looking to set 2% and then reach the limit of their tax cap and use that difference to put in the salary. And that's largely because those townships are paying at the lower rates countywide. One idea is to do a flat percentage. I think if we do 4%, we would just do it 4%. But one idea that's being floated by the town of Ithaca, and they haven't finalized it by any stretch, but it's to do a 2% and then do a stipend, recognizing that costs are have been very high this year. They're unusual expenditures that can be hard on staff in terms of fuel in particular. So Ithaca is looking at someplace between $500 and $1,000 as a flat stipend in addition to a 2%, so that they're putting more money into the pockets of employees this year in recognition of cost of living adjustments, but not impacting their future budget by putting that into a percentage increase instead. So that's, and the town of Ithaca obviously has not finalized that, but that's something they're looking at. And so I thought that was an interesting concept. It was actually raised by their bookkeeper as an idea.
I wonder how that works with collective bargaining.
Yeah, you have to take it to the. I
And
mean,
that's
the
the only
union's
thing I
gonna get
was-
4%, regardless, I mean, based on the contract, right?
Well, union will get 4%.
Right, so I don't
So
think
this
it's,
would not, the stipend would not affect the union?
But this is all up for discussion. If this is an idea,
no,
this
but
is,
in your idea,
oh,
the union gets their 4% and everybody else gets 2 plus a stipend.
that would be a way to do it if we wanted to do it that way, or we could look at 4% for
So I don't think
everybody.
that's fair. I think if you give the union, I think you should give everybody a 4%. I mean, it's 3% below what the rate, they're losing money anyway.
Does this count elected officials and everything, all of the salaries? So that can be different too.
Yeah, we don't have to take 4%
Right.
of it.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's all lumped together,
It is.
everybody, okay.
So I'm not for this, I'm for, I mean, if you got a 7% inflation rate and you give 2% plus a stipend, you're way behind the ballgame.
So how much of the salaries roughly, you probably know, are union in the town? You know,
Well,
There's 4
right now,
people.
there's only actually 3
people.
positions, one open, potentially open position.
But only for the highway department.
Right,
the only-
right.
but so in like the context that Caitlin was mentioning about changing, the whatever the budget and salary structure into the future, if you drive. I'm not arguing against 4%, I'm just saying that if you gave everybody 4% versus the union, that's gonna change up the budget quite a lot more into the future of salaries than if you just did the union at 4% and did this stipend concept and 2% or something, so. Is all, I mean, I think that's a valid point to
I just
consider.
wanted to
Right.
throw this out to the board. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with how we're gonna handle personnel and do everything else after that,
Right.
because they're the ones who.
But that, I mean, that is a
Yes,
concept worth
Say not.
worth considering, I think. I'm not arguing for or against any one thing, but it does change where you're at,
Right.
baseline to the future. I hear you what you mean about the union, but it's not, you know, it's a little bit of the budget versus a really big change in the budget. So.
And one other, I mean, I know you were sharing what you're hearing from some of the other towns, but one other thing to consider too is in terms of what your plans are going forward, the personnel that you need to support that, and evaluating whether you have some positions that are really undervalued compared to the market, and whether or not you need to consider making other adjustments in order to be able to recruit and retain the staff that you need. I mean, that's a big concept. I don't know that that's true here, that there's a problem in that area, but I can see that in other municipalities more starkly, where there are some positions that are really low, some that are probably very competitive. And, you know, it doesn't hurt to at least think about that also in terms of what your strategy is. Because maybe now it's not as hard to hire people or keep people, but I think that's really important if you want a strong workforce for what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm just putting that out there too. I'm not sure everybody always looks at it that way. People tend to look at things incrementally, but sometimes, you know, it's not a bad idea to just take a quick look at that, even if it's just comparing it to the county or whatever.
Well, we did that with highway last year.
Yeah, yeah. And there's definitely some small towns where the highway departments in particular are very underpaid and they can't recruit and retain people very well. And that's going to cause a huge problem for that municipality in the future if they can't maintain the roads, you know.
Yeah.
So those are just, I'm just saying that is another way to think about, strategically think about what you're doing with wages, that's all.
I mean, I think we're lucky we negotiated the 4% before the, you know, in a 3-year contract. Otherwise, we'd be paying 7% probably.
Probably would have.
So I think, I mean, I'm for at least 4%.
Do we have any idea how our salaries stack up with the other municipalities?
I can talk about some of the positions. We had to raise the planner position, the salary.
Right, I mean, that's
Yeah,
like
so-
market right now.
Right.
I
so-
wouldn't do a raise for that one.
Yeah.
probably, 'cause we just hired the person.
Well, no, I mean, everybody, I
You
mean,
have
like, you have to. I can't say to somebody who starts this year that they're not getting the cost of living adjustment. I mean,
Yeah,
that
I
would,
think you have.
that would really poison a relationship fast, I think. But our highway, we were low when we did the highway adjustment. So that's why we readjusted highway. So I think we're higher than the county. County pays the least though for highway. I think we're okay. We're in fine shape with highway department. Doesn't matter anyway because we're on contract, but we looked at code and codes on the higher end, not the high end, but the higher end.
Court?
I don't know about the court. I don't know about the court. I haven't looked into the justices.
They're elected positions.
Yeah, with the elected
Right.
officials,
I
it
think.
can be all over the place, but
Mhm.
my observation is that those are probably typical. I think what I found out, because our new field justice was way underpaid, he was the lowest paid justice in the county. The town then started making adjustments to that over a 3-year period. But I think yours are pretty average, pretty typical.
Okay.
It's
I
not, they're
can't
not real
speak to
high,
that.
they're not real low.
Something that we found when we've dug into this in the past, trying to compare our setup to others, is that the operations of other towns, we really can't compare the scope of work for the clerk is way different in the different towns, so it's hard to start comparing.
Not apples. to
Yeah,
apples.
it's tricky, and it can be done just as, it's tricky to do. There's a lot of variables and considerations with that, like even the highway departments have highway secretaries, so that the scope of work looks different in that way, so.
Yeah, and I think we're more, and you definitely can't do it based on just pure population. Because
Right.
we compare in a lot more ways towards Lansing and Ithaca than we do Enfield and, yeah, exactly. So, and we provide more services. I mean, we're a much more professional operation
But
than,
then we're not as big either, so it's hard to.
Yeah.
So, but it sounds like pretty good
Yeah,
in terms of
I'm not saying
what we're
that,
paying, we're not really underpaying.
I haven't
positions.
observed that there's any dramatically underpaid positions here compared to others. I think that sometimes clerical positions are the ones that might be notoriously underpaid, but they don't seem too bad here, but you don't have very.
We don't have many. That's part of the
Right.
problem. Yeah.
So if you add more clerical, I would just be cognizant of that. That's what I'm seeing in other places. And I'm not talking about elected officials, I'm talking about
The court.
the court clerk, the deputy clerk. If you have an admin assist or a typist or a secretary, you know, people who are doing those kinds of.
Well,
work.
that's particularly going to be pertinent because we have budgeted money to hire somebody in administration. We were trying to, for the planning and code. We need somebody in planning and code to offset.
Sure, we advertise, it? Oh, you wanted the.
I wanted,
planner
it-
to-
yeah, I want the planner to be a
When
part
is
of it.
he coming?
So a tentative start date, the 29th
Of this
so
month?
of this month. My guess is he'll actually be probably after Labor Day
Right.
because of the move process and
Um,
he signs the paperwork. So
Besides,
he signed.
all right,
Got it.
so, I mean, the 4% union is fixed.
Yeah.
So, and the elected officials, we could deal with separately. We don't have to give everybody 4% if we don't want to.
You could deal with them separately, yeah.
I think that should be discussed separately, just so that the public.
Right,
hears the
yeah,
discussion.
right.
I'm not advocating any one level, but just that it should be discussed separately.
I just wanted to mention along with this, I know you're gonna talk about it later in this meeting, but the one area where I think Ulysses is not consistent with having a spouse is our health insurance plan. And that's on the agenda, and the finance committee has also talked about it. But to me, that's part of compensation, and that's probably the one area where I see you're not offering the level of benefit that most other municipalities are offering. So I'm just mentioning that. No, I'm talking about the plan.
The plan
Oh.
itself. We'll go over that.
Yeah, we'll go over that later. I'm just mentioning it. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the actual benefit that employees receive,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
the health benefit. That's all.
So is the sense that we'd like to model at 4% and move forward with that?
Or not only employees at 4%, but I think we should discuss elected officials in a separate,
Or model them at 2 or whatever, and then
Separate,
discuss it further or something.
or does that not make sense?
No, I'm happy to do that. I'm just, so I just want to have a direction from this to go forward, and I don't want it to be 4 different possibilities. So,
Well, I'm saying.
so if you want to do
4%.
4%, let's just go direct to 4% or.
Yeah, the stipend thing is, I don't know, just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
So
You know, it's
employees
like
at
What
Employees
is,
at 4,
what is it next year when we're
right,
figuring it
right.
out?
Employees at 4%, and then we'll discuss elected in another meeting, as a separate.
Sure.
Situation.
So maybe put 2, what was the, where did the 2% come from?
Those
numbers.
2% plus.
Oh, that was just to know how much it was, it wasn't
Just
any
ballpark.
recommendation.
Correct.
Well, I mean, you could do it at 2 just to start up somewhere and know if you want to put it higher or lower. I mean, you probably put some increase, right? And
We always,
Yeah,
in previous
we've
years,
always done
it's
it.
always been whatever the,
Whatever
the adjustment is.
we've always done.
Because you have at least 3
Oh.
who are doing this mostly full-time.
Full-time.
So,
Right, so I'm saying, so maybe the town board, the full-time people get 4%, the town board can get 2%. I'm not. That's not right. That's
Not
fine.
that much. So like,
Fine.
all
It's
right.
fine. You know, it's buying a martini or something.
That's your martini budget.
one martini.
It's a really big one.
It's very good.
As long as you have real
Very
vo-
good
real
shit.
So what about justices? Where do they land on that? So I'm hearing 4% for staff and full-time elected and 2% for town board. And
I have no idea how the justices compare.
I would do 4% based
4%,
on
yeah.
their total salary is not very high.
all right, well, we could start there and I can give an update at some point, you know, when we get the budget requests in and I calculate the tax levy from, you know, it's basically the draft preliminary. There might be a touch point that we can at least send out an email or put it on an agenda at some point. So.
Well, I appreciate the board support with 4%.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
that's a
Thank
good
you.
direction.
Thank you, thank you. So some, and I see, oh, Michael put his hand down. I saw it, that he had his hand up at one point, but I'm not seeing it anymore.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Michelle.
Cool.
The tax cap was, the Denali put out was 2%.
So our tax cap was 3.29.
Oh, for 2023.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the only thing I read was Denali's that you put it at.
Yep.
Um,
3.29 is what our tax cap would be.
that was because of our underspending from previous years.
And there's an adjustment that happens. There's two multipliers that get calculated in that tax cap, and then there's a $8,000 carryover from last year.
Okay.
Yep.
And then just as you're talking salary increases as a benchmark, Cornell had, they put out 2.5% to 3% for this year. Just as a benchmark, so we know we're in the ballpark.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got some big expenditures coming up in 2023, at least planned, that we think are gonna come up in 2023. This IT and cybersecurity updates, we've had some ballpark estimates about the cost of this update. That we're gonna try to hone in on a little bit more, but we're really just gonna be using placeholders from what we know, because there is a lot of unknowns in that work. This includes software updates, so there,
Lots of unknowns in that one.
yeah, lots of unknowns in that one. So, but Microsoft, so everybody uses Microsoft. We function on Microsoft. Every town computer has it. And right now there's a lot of computers that don't have the up-to-date version. So there's going to be costs associated with making sure that we have those updates. And that was a ding that we got on that comptroller's report, is that we didn't have updated software. So there's going to be more information coming up very soon.
In addition to that, hardware, because we saved money in 2022 by refurbishing equipment instead of purchasing new equipment because of the microchip shortage. But the problem we're running into is that the inconsistency between computers means that we might not be able to transition everybody to new town software because the computers literally cannot be upgraded to the point of accepting it. So we might end up having to rotate out equipment because it's not ultimately going to be compatible, but that's not going to be early in 2023. That'll be after if we do a consultant and all that good stuff. So that's going to be a huge cost. That's in the A fund, the IT update. So we'll be working on numbers in August to plug into the budget, assuming that we're not going to get any of the funding that we asked for with that, the congressional funding. We haven't heard anything from them, so we'll assume. I don't think they've released anything.
No, they haven't.
So
And all these big item work plans, these are, at some point, we need to really hone in on what we need to really start doing the work to make decisions about ARPA funds and how we're going to spend those. And I would say a lot of this is eligible for ARPA funding because they're big one-time expenses.
I see in the facilities, you didn't put in the parking lot.
Nope.
Why not?
Because so we had a facilities expert come and do a walk around, and they found some other things that they're like, that can wait, because there's some other major things that need to happen first. So that parking lot was based on, I want to say historic, but that was from we've been talking about it for years, thinking that was a need, but we still hadn't had anybody come through and walk through the facilities. So we got a facilities expert to come in and take a look, and some other things rose to the surface, including the exterior paint. Well, do you mind if we just, let's get back to that in a minute, because
Okay.
we're gonna be working on comp plan updates. To what extent, let's just, if you don't mind, circle back to that. We just submitted that grant for the comp plan update. So I need to work with Caitlin and the finance committee and whoever wants to have an opinion about how we're going to budget. Are we assuming that we get the grants? I don't think we should, as far as the budget's concerned. And then if we do get them, then it will be more agile than if we're counting on funds that are just, we won't know until the end of the year. So we'll be able to make budget modifications at the organizational meeting if we do get those grants, but the idea would be that we would try not to affect the tax levy too much on items that we might get grants for. So we know that we have to do this comp plan update. The drinking water and stormwater are huge things in light of climate change, among other reasons, but those are big in my mind of what the town needs to do in order to feel prepared, not just financially, but logistically for climate change. So those will be items in the budget that you'll see. So the town hall facilities,
What, the drinking, what are you thinking about there?
if there's gonna be any expense in that,
Right,
yeah, I don't know, is there gonna be any?
well, I don't know that there might not be any for 2023, because, I think it's harder to decide what the expenditures will be until the plan is finished, right? And so it's probably gonna take through 2023 to do all the surveying and finish the plan and see where the needs are, so all of that stuff is paid for on the state drinking water funds deal that we got with the referral water, so I'm not so sure there would be much this year, maybe that's a next year thing when we see what sort of implementation comes out of it.
Okay.
I think it will take that long to finish, I mean, based on how long it took Enfield and the other towns that, when I spoke with this technical expert, Stephen from said, so I wouldn't think there'd be too much there.
What about like emerging contaminants?
Yeah,
Know anything about that?
Well, I mean, I think that would be something that we would hope to find out, but,
We should ban them. Pass a local law, not allowed.
there's a lot, there's some study of that in the lake. I don't know if there's much in wells and the public water system, but, we'll find that out. I think, that'd be very, we'll find some data on it. I think there's a lot. I mean, my understanding of these source water plans is to try to do things like think about what sort of contamination you might end up with in drinking wells or in public water supplies based on a lot of things, including the land use that's going on around it and all. Make, Enfield made a law, a source water protection law, and have zoning to help, protect the drinking water based on the things that were identified out of this planning exercise done with the rural water. So that's the sort of stuff that we hope to have come out of that. So I don't think there'd be a lot of expenditure there.
Well, that's good.
In this
From a
year.
expenditure wise.
Yeah. This year anyway.
but it is good to, Caitlin's made the point a couple times about how the budget really does set our work plan. And so knowing that there's, just trying to get a sense of like, what can we do next year? Even if it might take time and resources also.
Is there any anticipation of staff time?
For the drinking water.
I didn't have a sense of that. I mean, we have to get going on it, like he said he needed to finish up other things until August. We're at August and we actually have, I think, enough people now, at least for a core start committee. I can talk about that later. But we got a couple of applications off of the advertisements and other people have contacted me who are interested. So, but I, there might be a little bit, but I don't think much. I think it would be mostly that committee meeting with the tech specialist and then I might need information from you on the water districts or the maps we have or something like that, but not anything that's outside your kind of regular job, I don't think so.
Well,
I
maybe
don't think
then,
it'll be much.
maybe just do a small allocation,
Yeah.
so it stays in the line, but then if you guys want to do educational material
Right,
and
or
things
if
like
we
that.
need- I don't know if we need to pay for the mailing or something or something like that, so maybe just putting in some
Something.
small amount, but I don't
Okay.
think it's a big expenditure to implement protection strategies in this year.
Okay. That's good for information for the annotated budget, so that we can know that for 2024, that there's probably expenditures coming as a result.
Now, is stormwater part of that?
You know, what is the stormwater expenditures?
So stormwater is, so we've been working with Scott, we've been working with Tompkins County Soil and Water. And we have all of our culverts in a database, and we're looking at trying to find a way to assure that we're right fitted with our stormwater infrastructure. Whether it's a full-on stormwater study, which wouldn't happen until after the comp plan, probably, or like maybe in concert with the comp plan. But that's just something that it's something that we want to really pay attention to make sure that our culverts are correctly sized. We know that there's a handful that aren't. We know that there's a really expensive one that isn't. So that's what that's.
Right, and you put that, we put that in as another item in the comp plan revision.
The design, the flood mapping.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and I didn't bring you into this because of you were getting the grant ready, but the Scott and Rebecca have reconnected on the ditching projects also. So ditching pilot projects. So there might be some correlated expenditures depending on how that manifests itself. So that was just in the last week.
Is that just the education one, or are they actually talking about it?
I think now they're talking about doing actual work. So
Well, that's interesting. I need to talk to her because
it's really hard, honestly, because I'm just following email chains and I'm
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
part of the
I should
vote
get into
conversation.
that because there was a whole thing in the water, the IO about like, well, that's a very highly ranked project. And so now they have the implementation doing, you know.
I think they're
physical
talking
stuff.
about it. So
Right,
I don't
exactly.
think that
So
we're,
they are doing something with the Cuba Lake Watershed Network on informing people, but then I was asked, well, is that what Ulysses changed it to? And I said, I don't know. And so because they now have a watershed steward who can help get money for things, and that was highly ranked in that exercise that they did, the project we sent in for that, so I should just get on the page with all those guys so everybody knows what's going on. Cause I think I'm the one that's been like triangularly in those discussions. So anyway, that would be, yeah, we might be able to get some help from the IO helping get money for that project down the road. That's good.
Yeah, at least putting it on the radar so we know that
Right.
there might be some grant writing that we want to do in 2023 for that specifically.
All right, well, let's do the facility. I think you still should put it in the parking lot and let's see what it costs and see if we can get some money for it, because that parking lot is terrible.
Sure,
We
yeah.
don't know what these things are gonna cost yet.
Right, yeah, so the plan is to get a quote
Yeah,
for these for the budget season. I can put the parking lot on there too. I can get a quote for that. Or I can try.
do you think CSAC will have time to get some quote potentials? Because I know you guys are doing
Joe,
research.
the person who was really working on that, interested in leading on that was having some health issues and seems to have dropped out of communication. So I don't exactly know where that is. I mean, we sort of talked about it and looked at it a little, and it's kind of hard to see conceptually how well permeable pavement would actually work there. Like, where is it gonna drain to? And, you know, everything like, and it's a small space, so it might not be worth the extra cost, but I mean, we could look into it, but for the budget, you might just, you know, get a pavement one, or
Yeah.
maybe you can just get a landscape person to come and give a quote on it, and then, you know, we can do further study if the board wanted to, but when you look at the size of it and where the cars park and where you put
Yeah.
the drainage, it's a little bit hard to see if that's really the
And it's a complicated
right.
series of lots.
Right, whether it's a good site for that, actually for the extra investment, I mean, not that all for.
Right.
No, you know, reducing water runoff from impervious surfaces and pollution, I'm all for it, but, so I think maybe just getting a regular one, and or if, you know, you happen to have a person out here that'll just give you a quote for the other two, but I don't think that that's really something that we're gonna really get the CSAC focused well on, just because of this issue.
Sounds good.
right.
So yeah, the exterior needs to be painted. There's places where paint is completely worn off, which means it's a vector for water. So there's some repair in places, but that's the sort of thing that happens exponentially. So in order to really maintain the exterior of this building, it needs to be painted and repaired in spots. And scaffolding will be needed because of the high gable ends here. So that just, I mean, that just adds so much to the cost of it when you get scaffolding involved, so. And that was the one thing that the facilities person who came in and reviewed it, she kept harping on that, she's like, this is really important, so. And as we know, we'd like to get the back door ADA compliant. So we're gonna get a quote on that. Just a quick history on that is that, you know, we did have the port grant, the availability lapsed because we couldn't even get anybody to bid on the work. There are 2 local vendors who can do the work, and so, but they couldn't fit within the timeline that we had to work within. So I'm gonna get quotes from them and see when, you know, it might be spring or fall next year even, that they'll have time to do that sort of thing, so. The public bathroom is pretty well ADA compliant, but we do need to have somebody come in here and assess it and make sure that there might be something that needs to happen with that.
I could think or something like that, yeah.
So there's some insulation work that still needs to happen. That front gable end isn't insulated at all. And really, the insulation on the floor of the attic space could be redone. It's not critical. But that front gable end is not, like I said, it's not insulated at all. So there's a lot of heat exchange going on at the front of the building, which is where the sun hits. So in this room right here, there's actually spots that you can see outside. There's light coming through. And there's, you know, along with that, throughout the building, there's holes. I mean, we're lucky that we don't have pest issues here in the town hall because there's lots of little holes all over. So getting that sort of stuff sealed up. There's a stain in this in this room right here that someone needs to come and make sure that it's not because there's a leak in the. It's an old stain, but we do need to just make sure that there's nothing wacky going on with the roof. So.
It doesn't seem like there should be. Now, that's not to say that there isn't, but before we installed the solar panels, we replaced the roof because we were concerned about that because, you know, the lifespan of the solar panels was 20 or 30 years and the roof was on 15 or 18 and it was a 20-year one. So I don't remember what kind of roof. I'm sure it's in the record somewhere we put on, but it was supposed to be good for at least 20 more years, if not longer.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's not a roof
Probably.
issue. And that was, I would say, 2012, probably the end of 2012, because I think those panels were put on in early 2013, or late 2012. But the roof was done in fall 2012, I would think. So, you know, that roof should be okay, but someone should look at it. It's bad if it's not, but it should be.
Yeah, we need to figure out a way to capture that, like, you know, lifespan of the roof.
Right.
Year, whatever.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's in the capital plan. Yeah, the roof, yeah, I think that sounds right, 2012, 2013.
Yeah, it was, I was thinking the end of 2012, the solar panels were put on at the beginning of 2013.
So,
Oh, you have the parking lot down in the capital plan.
yep, I'll get
Okay.
that quoted for this year.
Yeah, okay.
I think the insulation work is, I mean, we always knew that we weren't doing that when we did, and we kind of glazed over that when we did the report for the grant. So
And there was some insulation.
a little
work
bit was done,
Yeah.
and that was enough, but we knew that we needed more, but.
Well, it's not projected for this year because we already talked to Chris, but Chris's office isn't insulated. And it needs to be insulated. So that's gonna be, I don't want to surprise the board. You're like, but I thought we did all the insulation last in 2023.
No,
No,
but I mean, it's probably worth getting a quote for all of it, if you're actually getting an installation person to do the work here, it might be cheaper than having to come back again. And you could trade off whatever, the parking lot or something like that, but, you know, if you're having someone come and do all the installation work, it's worth. They have to move all their stuff, and the equipment, that's part of the cost.
Chris's office is the only one that wasn't redone. And so it's really, there's no sheetrock or insulation or anything on that, so it would be,
a bigger
not,
project.
yeah, it would be like a whole renovation of the clerk's office that would be done to insulate it.
I still think it's worth getting an estimate when they come.
Yeah.
So break it out into, if you add that to.
Yeah,
It also might be, make it more attractive as a job.
Right.
So you might be able to actually get it done, which will save us money
right,
on the rest of it, so.
okay. Yeah, I was wondering about finding somebody who could quote me on everything. You know, if there's a single outfit that would be able to provide a quote on all the different things.
Well, recently Newfield worked with Stream Collaborative.
Oh, I love Stream.
To look at several facilities we have that we're considering upgrading with some of the ARPA money. One was a community park. Another was actually the town hall facility, which is in need of help. But to also make it, because it's not accessible very easily to the public, and to try to improve that. So we needed to have estimates in order to plan for using grant money and to figure out what we're doing. And so they came in and they did not detailed design, but kind of, preliminary conceptual design, and they'll be giving us estimates. So I'm just mentioning
Yeah,
that.
they're good.
Yeah, they are.
I'm obviously, we engaged in a contract with them for a price to do that.
Right.
It's not like just getting a quote from a contractor who's gonna walk through and give you a quote. It's a little bit different than that. But if you wanna look at larger scale potential projects, that might be one approach you could take. Just-
We're also, as a heads up, we are going to be reorganizing the upstairs here because with the plan of moving to have an administrative person in the code and planning office, we can't squeeze 3 people in there.
Right.
And so the idea would be the planner would actually come up here, potentially both the planner and the code, and then having a clerk basically and a meeting space down there, and let them work up here, and Michelle going into that room. We're going to be talking about how to move people around appropriately. But we have some space limitations.
All right.
So Water District 3 has some big items coming up that we need to discuss. If you remember this year, we've had some unplanned expenses. There was that emergency replacement of the software and hardware for the water system monitor. It pushes out the alerts if the chlorine residual is low, or if the power goes off, or that sort of thing. The interface for that malfunctioned, so we had to drop some money on that just about a month ago or so.
Is that the 5,000 is listed? That's very expensive.
Correct. We have the anoid bag replacement that was budgeted, that's gonna happen. And then we have another large expenditure coming up that I'm hoping maybe Carissa, can you tee this off? It's the radio
Yeah.
meters and software.
So we have a handheld reader that's fairly old that we use to read the meters. Over the past few years, we've been replacing a lot of the old meters with meters that can be read remotely, radio meters. And our handheld meter, you can't buy a new one. And we're currently having an issue with it. And so we had to send it back to TI Sales, and we're still sorting out what the issue is, but the only option if our handheld meter goes down is to get on the schedule to borrow one from TI Sales, so they can send us a loaner to read the meters if we let them know, in advance, so that another town doesn't have it. So it's pretty precarious. So we need to come up with a plan to probably change out our radio, or change out our old meters to be compatible with the newer software and the newer meter. So everything, it's like regular software just gets obsolete and outdated. You gotta keep up, or you find yourself in a pickle where you can't read meters. So I've been talking to our salesman to kind of come up with the big picture plan of if we switch everything and pay all the money and do it all now, how much will that cost? If we do a more phased approach, there's a couple different options. How much will that cost, and how much time will it take to actually change out all the meters, and do we have the labor to do that? So there's a lot of different variables to consider in gathering that information.
Do they have a ballpark of how much it would be?
It's, if we wanted to do like the full, change out all the meters, get the new software, get the new reader, that's like a $60,000 price tag.
Which it sounds is like the direction we have to go in, right?
There are, well, there might be another option for slowly phasing in.
It's a direction we have to go in. It's
But,
just how
yeah,
quickly do we get there?
Exactly, and the other option is, like, do you want to spend 30,000 to do,
Part of it.
yeah, part of it, and then have to spend more to do.
Because there's an economy of scale, so if you buy a certain number of radio heads, it becomes cheaper per unit and
Well,
And
if
so-
you can, I think you should do it all at once.
The water district have. reserve fund.
Some, but not.
Right.
not $60,000. So we're gonna be bringing, we're, as we've been kind of waiting for the finalizing the numbers. And so it'll either be at the next board meeting or the second meeting in August, where we're gonna bring a plan together and suggest. And it's just as a heads up, I'm gonna be suggesting it's a combination of, there's some reserves, there were some capital reserves that were supposed to be transferred into the reserves for them, for Water District 3 this year. We can just take that and pull that as well and offset the balance by ARPA. And it comes out, it was something in the range of, what was it, 11,000, 15,000, I can't remember how much ARPA money was needed to offset.
We
It was
originally
rough.
had planned,
Because it's in the proposed, it was in the 2022 budget to actually do this completely with ARPA. But we have other money we can pull from. So
So we had originally planned this much, the 38,962 for the radio meter replacements for ARPA.
And so, well, I mean, this is not a question for the budget right now, I guess, but, well, one question is, when are they done paying off the loan?
Yeah, I think
2024.
2 more
And
years.
then there's no way from a previous board discussion, I guess, to be able to have that district pay back that money to the town as like a loan thing or something, if we pay for that? Because I still remain very close to spending full town funds on a water district. I'd like to see a way that, and I'll probably be in the minority, but I'd like to see a way that it can be paid off, they'll be done paying the loan and everything. You can be paying in to accumulate more capital reserves or something. It's just the principle of water districts is not that the whole town's tax base pays for.
Right, well, we're not.
Well, but you are with the ARPA funds. We could do other things with the
But
ARPA
but
funds
our-
that benefit the whole town, not
But
just.
isn't
the
water and
district.
sewer one of the big things ARPA is about?
It's also supposed to be funding communities that are disadvantaged, and we have census data on that.
We aren't that though,
Jacksonville is.
but the rest of the county Ulysses is not.
I know, but you're supposed to, originally the intention was to prioritize that, which was, you're gonna have to, yes, you can have that.
Okay,
go
well, I
back
mean, that's a
downstairs.
discussion, and I'm just
Yeah.
saying what my view on that is, and it's going to remain so, because that's an issue with water districts. That's why you think about where water districts are. That's why.
I don't disagree with
And
you.
we might
actually.
find out when we do this other water study, that there are drinking water issues that are large in the town that we could use
Yeah.
some of that money to help a lot of people as opposed to just the people in the water district. So I just, to me, it's a bigger conversation, but
I agree, and I think we should,
obviously we'll be in the
have that
minority, but I
at
will
the
say
town
at
board
the
meeting.
meeting, I just want you to know.
You don't know if you're in the minority or not.
That's a lot of money in one thing, and they're going to be done paying off the loan.
True.
They can pay.
So your
more,
que-
they're
but your-
still reduced
But your
down.
first question was, can we loan them the money and have a payback? And I think, do we have a definitive answer on that?
we can't do that with ARPA money. I
No,
mean,
not ARPA money,
No,
but
but
our
our
money.
Our money, yeah, the town's.
yes, the town can loan the money. I'd like to wait because we're looking at a $38,000 amount that was budgeted. That's not the plan that will be brought to the board either next week or 2 weeks from that.
Well, but-
So I would like to, before
Yeah,
anybody
okay.
gets upset about
Yeah.
numbers that aren't in front of them, I'd like to just put a pin in this and
That's
say, let's continue this
Great,
conversation.
let's move on.
Budgeted was not to be approved is what I recall from listening to the budget discussions. The board did not decide, yes, we will do that with those funds by putting it
We
in the
didn't.
budget.
we
So
didn't
I
decide.
understand, and I'd like to move on because
So
we can have
saying
this
budgeted
conversation.
Doesn't mean it was decided, anyway.
All right, let's,
Sure.
this is gonna be
Yeah.
discussed.
Sure.
So the other large expense that came up that is sort of like as soon as possible, we'll put it on the put it in the 2023 budget it's an injector quill, the chlorine injector quill was quoted around 10,000. My guess is that we'll put some contingency on top of that, knowing that prices are going up and we're not in a position to do anything about that at this point. So, so that will be in the 2023 budget. And then I did have a question for Michael, if he's available on that one.
I'm here.
Hey, Michael, are you still able to find the outfit that might be able to give us a second quote for that injector quill?
Yeah, I checked with one company.
Okay, would you be able to email me the name of that company?
I thought the date of the anode bag was long past now, though.
This is the injector quill. We have the anode bag replacement scheduled for this year, but this is getting quotes for the injector quill.
Right, but I thought when Aquastore was coming up, they were gonna have to drain the tank anyway to do an inspection.
Oh, and the tank has to be drained for the injector quill?
It could be, yeah.
Okay, all right, well, we'll talk about that. We'll circle back to that.
But did that
Thank you.
date come and go? Did that date come and go for the tank?
It got delayed,
Oh, delayed, okay.
yeah, so I think we're looking at like October now.
Oh, okay, so there's still time.
Yeah, I'm not sure we would be able to do it this year, though, adding another 10,000 into the water district 3 expenditures. I'm not sure it's possible this year.
No, but I thought that 70% of that was the painting, that we could kick that can down the road.
Oh, I see. Okay,
I think it was the injector plus the painting, I think was 10,000.
all right. Well, I'm gonna put that on my list of something to follow up with you on, to freshen up the costs and the process.
Okay, perfect. We'll connect on it.
Alrighty, so, just to touch base on community organization funding in 2022, that was the amount that we, through that process, the community organization funding process that was in its first year last year, that basically Carissa oversaw, adding 4%, that's how much it is, it's about $1,000. So, just putting that out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, on the 4% increase on that.
You think it should be more?
No, less, I don't know.
Is the food pantry something that applies for?
They haven't applied, they have not applied. They would be eligible to apply.
I just feel like, I don't know if they would, but again, it circles back to food costs, and food is a real
Well,
stress issue.
they should be encouraged to apply.
Right, but I mean, but if they haven't been before, they
No,
were
this would
part
be
of
new
what
money.
was funded, so,
Right,
I mean, I would support that much more for community. Maybe even thinking about a little bit more, but I
Right.
don't know, because I do think that's gonna be a stress.
right.
I mean, another thing I think would be really great, I don't know that we can do that, I mean, it might be a conversation for multiple municipalities or the county, but if there was a person that, could be in for 3 or 4 hours one day a week or something, or maybe it could be something we have here, but to help people, there's all kinds of opportunities to get help with paying your bills and paying all these
Yeah.
things, but you have to apply, and it's hard to do, and it's hard to know how to do. And I think that for not a lot of money, that could be a service that this town could think about.
Well, the
That
county
would
help, the 211,
Right.
where you can,
But like, sometimes people need help actually do.
Like a healthcare navigator, but
Yeah,
The services navigator.
yeah, for like, I mean, there's all sorts of things, I mean, when you post them all the time, we come across them. But like, you have to understand how to deal with those kind of applications, which is not straightforward.
I've
So
seen
It's
that.
just a thought anyway, maybe it's a discussion with Trumansburg Village too, and, maybe it isn't much money, but maybe we can rearrange things if it can happen, it's just something I want to throw out there, we can move on.
So but this funding is just 4% of the existing from last year, that's not
That's a
including,
4%
but
increase.
that's not including any new applications. we
Right.
may get.
So I was gonna propose that for this year, we kind of change how we did it. Last year, I think it was very awkward because we didn't set a firm amount that we wanted to allocate. And because we didn't have like a firm target, it put, and we did everything in the full board discussion, as opposed to having recommendations coming from a subcommittee. It's difficult to be in the position of telling an organization that you don't want to fund them to whatever their request is. So I think it would just be from an ideological standpoint, or from a philosophical standpoint and an efficiency standpoint. I think it'd be really good for the board to set a target of how much roughly we're, a pretty good, range of how much we're willing to fund in total. And so then we can share with the community, we're funding $30,000 worth, right? Or whatever, and let people know. I mean, I've let people know at the monthly community call that we are going to be, kind of a save the date, that this is going to be coming out, but that it's not released yet. And then have a subcommittee that actually reviews the applications and makes a recommendation. That's how youth commission works. I think it works really well, that kind of that minutia is handled at a committee level. And then a recommendation comes to the board that this is what the allocations are. The board set this target. These are the allocation recommendations.
Right, just thinking about the breadth of what you're funding and the prioritization.
Right.
level. I think that's a great.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it would be great coming out of this if we could just set an amount that's, and maybe it goes a little bit more, maybe it goes slightly less, but say, set a rough amount so that we can advertise that to
Well, I
the
would say
public.
30,000, since we've already committed to 27. Maybe not to leave the
We might not
increase
get
on.
that many asks
Yeah,
anyway, so.
And that helps on my end, because if we don't have that information, the particulars until after the preliminary
Right,
budget,
right.
I can at least have a placeholder for
Right,
it.
okay.
That's great.
We can put it in the newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so then people
multiple times
understand
so
how
we
much.
Yes.
Start thinking
Yeah.
that could happen. I
Right.
think that's a
So I
good
want to be
idea.
on that committee. I will with me.
I will.
So Michelle, I have a request. I have to leave at 9:45. Can we do the health insurance and the
Yeah,
trust
absolutely.
thing first and then?
I'll just make a quick note about the capital plan, which is that we now have more capital plans that we're using to guide our multi-year path as a town. So that's my main point here. More details coming in granular at the finance committee, and then obviously at the department head meetings. So that's my point around all that.
I have to leave at 9:55. I got a legal call at 10,
Right,
so.
So we could do the finance thing. So,
You mean the health insurance?
we're gonna do the trust company. The
Investment.
the investment.
Oh,
thing.
okay.
So, here's the overall thing. Our money now is earning what? Nothing.
It's in
0.1,
savings.
Earning 0.01 or 0.02.
There are pennies that we've earned.
Interest rates have come way up, so we have an opportunity now to invest our money with a much higher rate. The best rate you could do is probably in CDs at non-local banks, but it's a hassle.
We don't have the staff time
To get it
to
approved.
shuffle all that. I mean, it's
So,
like.
I mean, you could get like a
contracts.
one-year CD right now for 3.1%. But Blitzy and Michelle investigated what at the trust company, they will manage a portfolio of government bonds and yielding about net 2.4%. Right, they take a fee for managing it of about 0.4, but net we would get about 2.4 and it's liquid. So you put $1 million in there, you get $24,000, which is a lot, which is found income for us.
Do you have to leave it? in
No,
or something?
no,
Oh, it's totally
liquid,
liquid.
liquid.
Okay.
So we have
Awesome.
$2 million we could probably put in there. So we could make $48,000, which is just a great boon to us.
It's a position,
It's a position,
It's a
right?
renovation at the clerk's office.
Right. So I just want to let them go do that. If we could approve that now, that would be great. Then you could call them and start the process.
Yeah, the fact that it's also, the trust company means that it's very easy for us.
Right.
to
Move
move
money.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
So
as a finance person, I would opt for the other one, but as a personnel matter, it's just much easier to, and it's not that much we're
I
saying.
mean, there are constraints on what municipalities can invest in.
But you can
with
invest
their
in
money, so-
CDs.
Right, but like being a big hassle.
Right, this is
worth it.
much easier. It's
Right.
seamless at your local
Yeah,
bank.
yeah, no, I think it's.
They've seen our policy
Yeah.
and they have a whole municipal department.
Yeah,
that
yeah, we've
does-
had them.
Yeah. So can we make a motion do we need a motion or can we just Do we need a motion or
I
not?
think we should probably motion it.
I think we should.
Would it be possible if we just could wait until, would it be okay to wait till the next board meeting so we can have a written out resolution that clearly spells it out? Is that okay with everybody?
That would be my preference.
Does it
Okay.
have to be acted on really quickly? though?
Well, no, I mean,
The whole-
we're every day we're not, we're losing money.
Right.
That's the only downside.
Well, the trust company is already an authorized bank.
They're already authorized. I don't know why we
It's
actually,
really, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that it's not the same as if you're adding another banking institution to your investment policy.
we'll just,
And our
Right.
investment
Maybe we
policy
just do it.
gives
I
the
think
town
you can
supervisor the authorization.
so I
to
think you can just
invest.
do it.
Well, then what I'll do is I'll do a board notification.
Okay.
So that it's part of the clear part of the record, because I did say we weren't gonna take, it. that was
Yeah,
stupid, he said, we weren't gonna take any action.
Right,
But I can do it as a board notification and we'll just take care of it.
okay.
So
All right, good. All right, thank you.
that's great. Thank you for making those recommendations.
And the health insurance?
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you talk about the health insurance?
All right, so the spreadsheet that you have, that's on the screen right now, you're currently offering the gold plan, which is a high deductible plan, plus an HSA, which is worth half of the out-of-pocket maximum. What I hear from staff and what I observe is that this is a burden and a challenge because of the plan benefits are not nearly as robust as the platinum plan, which of course is a, it has an actuarial value of like 90% of the healthcare costs. And the cost to the town is actually less or about the same. Because it's not a high deductible plan, you would not offer an HSA. And the premiums to the employees do go up a little bit because it is a higher cost premium. But the benefits they get and the out-of-pocket maximums, and one of the pages you have in the materials is a plan comparison too. It's a big deal, the difference between them. And I think what I observe is the platinum plan is pretty much the standard in this county, and it's all through the health consortium of what people are offering. So I would suggest that this is the way to go, because it isn't actually going to cost more per plan. What might happen is more people might choose to take it.
And it costs a lot.
But at the same time, we have the people, I think, are we doing the survey? Krista, can you want to speak to the survey?
So, myself and various other people have been working on a health insurance survey to staff to get an idea of if we did make a switch to satisfaction with current plan, if we made a switch to the other plan, if that would be preferable, and also if people who are not currently taking the health insurance the town did switch to the platinum plan, if other people would be willing or interested in joining that plan.
There aren't very many eligible people who are not currently taking the plan. I think there's 3. And part of the reason is because they have spouses with very good plans. And so whether they would actually change to
Right.
this, it may be comparable, but it wouldn't necessarily be a lot better.
Well, we would have to take this to the union too.
Right, and then whatever happens would have to be negotiated, because there is an increased cost to the employee in the form of the premium. However, in terms of the out-of-pocket for the premium, but the other out-of-pocket costs are so much lower that it's really an improved benefit from my point of view. The union, though, would have to agree to that. And so that couldn't change for the union members unless it was negotiated. But my feeling about that is that they would agree to it, but we don't know that.
We have to take it to them. I mean, it's fine with me as long, if we're saving money, and again, not doing an HSA makes it a little less complicated.
Right.
And this would take effect next year.
Right, it
Right,
wouldn't
right.
be until January 1,
Right.
until the new plan year. And there'd be an open enrollment period where
Right.
folks could switch plans and enroll, and, with the town would work with the consortium. But again, administratively for the town, it's pretty easy. Because it's not like we're switching carriers or anything. We just be
Right.
switching the plan that we're using at the
Right.
consortium.
And personally, as someone who uses that health insurance, I would gladly welcome a plan that requires less personal management and administration.
Right,
Between, you know,
turn to the HSA and,
the HSA and, you know, putting money into the HSA to make sure I have enough money to
Right.
cover the deductibles and other things that might come up above what we have in the HSA and, you know, blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
okay.
But it doesn't save a ton of money, right? just
It does,
doesn't
a little
cost-
bit.
I don't see that,
Yeah,
I'm
annual
sorry.
total on the gold is 84.81
Oh,
for
because of the
single.
HSA.
The no HSA
Right,
is 78,
right,
72.
Right, so the premiums are higher, but you're not offering an HSA.
I got that, okay.
I mean, the family plan is $30, so.
Yeah.
Right, it's really the individual plan,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
where there's a little bit of
Right, right,
savings.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I think it's fine, yeah.
I also don't think paying 10% is very
It's
much.
been not at
Well,
all.
10%
Relative
is
to where
good.
else you work.
Yeah, no, 10% is excellent in
It's
terms of
very
your employer
low.
share,
That's right.
but the
so-
plan itself is, I think, extremely challenging for people, especially
Yeah.
folks on a family plan.
Right, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying that if you move it up and then have to pay a little bit more, that's
Yeah,
still
right,
not a lot
yeah.
in the relative scheme of
Right.
how things get, like, I'm just thinking about Cornell, how things get added in and
Right.
increased and how much of the percent you have to pay. It's a lot
Right,
more than
sure.
that, so it's a good deal.
I pay a lot more than that for my family plan.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I mean of our, our fraction of employee costs are a lot.
And that's, that would be, I'm assuming, a 2024 conversation because of the union.
No,
Oh,
no, 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 no.
Percentage
No, the
pay.
percent, yes.
Oh, yeah, if you wanted
100%,
to
yeah.
look at the percent
Oh,
share.
I'm not saying you should add,
Yeah.
raise it up if the town gets into more financial straits, then that might be something you would look at in the future if we have more employees,
Right.
more healthcare costs. I'm not saying you should do that now. I'm saying that it's hard for me to imagine if they compare to other things, that if you went to platinum, having to pay that much extra annually is gonna be
Is a good
a
deal.
big burden. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, okay, so we're okay with using
yeah,
this.
I think so.
Cool. I know Rich has to go, but there's a few other things that I'd like to circle back to. Just talking about the capital plans. So this year we did, well, first of all, I just want to say that capital plans are really planning tools. We will be updating them annually or even more so if something pops up. So they're not really set in stone roadmaps. They're moving targets that we have to be nimble about based on the new information that we get on a regular basis for that sort of thing, for all the capital planning. So we really are starting to use them as multi-year planning tools. And adding to them. So this year, Scott and I did a first draft of a culvert and a paving plan, which was really good to line those two things up based on CHIPS income. So those are the two main things that happen with CHIPS revenue. So just seeing how we're doing if, we assumed that CHIPS was flat, just because we're not sure how that's gonna go, but so things are looking pretty good there. Besides those culverts that we have to replace that are gonna be big ticket ones that we really do need to find.
Do you own the culverts or does the
Yes.
county? Okay.
Well, on town roads, we
On
on
town.
on county roads, we don't.
I just didn't know how many of the culverts you're looking at. You're just looking at.
Just town owned. Yep.
Because I'm sure there's many others that,
Yes.
if you're talking about stormwater,
Thank goodness we
could
don't.
be
own-
challenging.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, no, but that's why we need to be in coordination with the county on it because of how much that interplays. So, sorry, I skipped ahead, but back up to the highway equipment, which is the capital plan that we're all really used to seeing. If you remember, last year, we ordered a vehicle that had a 3-year payment to it. So 3 set payments, flat payments each year. So that's gonna be, at this point, the only thing we have on our radar as far as equipment goes is that 2nd year payment for that. And then facilities, we've updated our facilities capital plan to include not just the town hall, but the town barn That sidewalk to the Sure Save is ours, that needs maintenance. That should, basically sidewalks need to be caulked every 5 years, so we need to start thinking about that because it's been more than 5 years, so. The other things on the town hall facilities capital plan that need to that we need to take a look at are, I mentioned those holes throughout the interior of the building. The front sidewalk of the building, there's some separation going on that we need to take a look at and see if there's anything we can do to solve. There might be a product that they can sort of, but that's just gonna need replacement quicker if we don't do anything about it. We mentioned the clerk's office, the masonry needs to be repointed maybe in like within 10 years or so. But that's gonna be that'll be a cost. The parking lot's gonna be a big cost. We're anticipating in 2029, we'll need to replace the salt shed for the barn, which I think there's probably water quality grants we might be able to get for that. So that's gonna be a huge expense. And Water District 3, there's an in-progress capital plan that's included all of the improvements that we've talked about today with that, so. I just wanted to make the board aware that we are working on the department level to work towards a more comprehensive multi-year planning organizational wide. And then this sort of goes to, these are the current reserves that we have. Oh, that's too small, isn't it? I don't think, I'm not gonna do a line by line here, but mostly this was to demonstrate what we have currently in reserves. This is with 2022 additions. And what we're gonna do is use the capital plan, all those capital plans, and connect them to our current reserve balances and make sure that we are meeting our funding goals. So that'll be washed out in this next month for the budgeting process. And then one thing to point out here is that this reserve right here, we had budgeted that a capital reserve for Water District 1, and this is what Caitlin was talking about, how we might need to, sorry, now I'm
Wait,
Yeah.
that's 3.
Water District 3. Sorry. Let's see, does this not open up? No. So that's the amount right there that we were going to create and put into a capital reserve that we might actually need to use for that radio meter head replacement. So that's the one that I wanted to point out specifically here. But these reserve funds, unless we're planning on using them next year, that's about what we're talking about as far as the investment plan that we were talking about earlier. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I gotta,
have a great day.
you too.
Is there some executive session thing that?
Oh, yeah, what did you?
Oh, so we're not gonna need to do that. The reason we put a placeholder executive session is if anybody felt the need to go into details that could not be done in public session related to anything that would be considered confidential with personnel. But we never needed to trigger that, so we can skip right past that. We already did the investment strategy. We have upcoming town board meetings. Any board member announcements? We can't wait till next Tuesday? Okay. Is there anybody in the public? Carissa?
No.
Nope, nobody's in the public. So someone make a motion to adjourn?
So.
Second?
Second.
We are concluded. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle and Blixie. This is very helpful. I appreciate the board doing this. I